and I work in our Elder Abuse Prevention Awareness Program. We do have Acacia Deadrick with the Alzheimer's Association with us today as our guest speaker. Super excited to have her. Some quick housekeeping is that everybody is muted at this time to reduce some background noise. Please forgive me for my background noise. There is a chat option that obviously you guys have found because you told me you can hear me, which is great. We use the chat option for if you have any questions. We will have the questions at the end of Acacia speaking. That way that she can get through all the helpful information. At the end, we will have certificates of attendance and a survey that will be sent out next week at the end of our series. We are recording this session. Yesterday, I kind of had some technical difficulties, so hopefully today this works. So we are holding this virtual training as an observance of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day started in 2006. It is an opportunity for communities around the world, so not just Iowa, not just the US, but all around the world, to have the time, have the opportunity to be able to share information, to share understanding, and raise awareness for abuse that happens to our elders. It is in Iowa. We were able to get the governor's proclamation to extend it from just June 15th to the week of June 15th. So we have all next week as observance of World Elder Abuse Awareness. In our central region here in Council Bluffs, we were able to get the Bob Carey pedestrian bridge lit up purple. So super excited. We are using it as a symbol to connect, Council Bluffs, Omaha, because we partner with our AAA over there, just like we partner with our AAAs here in the state of Iowa. So be watching for our social media. So if you have not liked our Facebook page for connections, go ahead and do that. I would highly recommend it. We have some exciting things starting tomorrow, all of next week as well. Great way to just share the information. If you're trying to figure out what to say and how to bring awareness, it's just sharing what we already have set up. So with that, each year we try to focus on a different topic. We do listen to our community members, our providers on what they would like to see more of. And the common thing was about dementia and elder abuse. So yesterday we had Barb Breyer be able to speak about what is dementia, the different forms of it, as well as, their heightened risk for elder abuse because of the symptoms, as well as the caregiver neglect, what happens there as well. So we did a lot of these stats yesterday. Again, everybody was here yesterday, that is today, so I will not go ahead and bore you with more information of the same thing. So I'm going to welcome Acacia. Again, she is with the Alzheimer's Association, Iowa chapter. She's a program specialist, so she works in our whole service area, so super excited. The big thing that we hear a lot from our caregivers and family members is, I don't know how to communicate with my loved one. So she's going to speak about the effectiveness, how to have effective communication with a person with dementia. And so communication is essential, but it's also difficult with a person that is diagnosed with dementia. So she's going to, again, share some strategies on how to help both us as providers be able to help support our family members that we work with, as well as, somebody who is maybe early to mild diagnosed. So I am going to attempt to share my screen, or give her permission to share her screen. So bear with me as we figure this out. And Acacia, you'll have to unmute yourself to be able to do that. Oh, there she is. Okay, so are you able to hit the option to share your screen?
Yes, can you see it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Perfect.
So I'm going to mute myself. Again, we will refrain we'll ask questions at the end. So if you have questions, use that chat box, and then we will get them answered at the end. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tasha. Hello, everyone. Like Tasha said, my name is Acacia Deadrick, and I am out of the Sioux City office. I am a program specialist at the Alzheimer's Association, and I also have a personal connection to the disease. So today's presentation, like Tasha said, is going to be all about how we can most effectively communicate with people with this disease. There are 3 stages to the disease, and we are going to talk about how communication is going to look different in each of those stages. Let me see here how I can get. Oh, goodness. There we go. Okay. Thank you. And like Tasha said, if you're just joining, if you do have questions, go ahead and just put them in the chat feature, and that way I can go through and answer them all at the end. And then you don't have to try and remember them while we're going through. Today, like I said, we're going to explore how communication takes place when someone has this disease. So by the end of today's program, you are going to be able to explain all of those communication changes. You're going to decode verbal and behavioral messages that are delivered by someone with this disease, and how you can respond in ways that are helpful rather than harmful. And then you'll be able to identify how you can connect with them and communicate with someone with this disease at every stage. Like I said, there are 3 stages. And communication is more than just me talking and you listening, or you talking and me listening. It's about sending and receiving messages, and those can be sent through attitude, through tone of voice, through your facial expressions, your body language. It's a way that we express ourselves and how we relate to each other. And as the brain changes with Alzheimer's disease, as it progresses, people lose their ability to speak and decode language in the ways that we typically do. So the better we can understand those changes, the better we're able to connect with them throughout every stage of the disease. And that's why it's so important to know the different stages and some of the different symptoms and different nuances that accompany each stage, because it does look a little different. Like I said, as this disease progresses, people lose their ability to communicate through words. They also lose the ability to understand what other people are saying to them. But during this whole disease, people always maintain a very strong sense of self. So those elements, those characteristics that make us unique, that make us special, we're still going to have those throughout our entire life, even if you do have this disease. And that's so important to remember when you're trying to connect with someone. You want to really pull on their sense of self and try to communicate that way, and still give them a voice. Even if they can't talk, even if they're doing all of their communication through behaviors, you still want to give them that sense of self and their voice in whatever way they have to express it. So like it shows here, there are 3 stages: early, middle, and late. They're also sometimes referred to as mild, moderate, and severe. And while there are 3 stages, they are not concrete, they're not cut and dry. They are a progression, and some symptoms that you might think are associated typically with the middle stage, you might see in the early stage in one person, and vice versa. It's going to look different in every single person who has this disease, and they are going to be very fluid. But there are some things that are more typical in the early stages versus late stages. And in the early stages of the disease, you might only notice a few changes and everything else is not as noticeable. It's just going on in their head. There might not even be any changes that you notice at all. So it's really important that you are asking the person how they want to be communicated with. If they want to be helped finding words, if they want to just have some time for them to gather their thoughts, you want to have a very honest, open conversation with them and ask them what they prefer to hear or to be communicated with. Language abilities diminish as the disease progresses, and communication moves from that easy conversation to having to rely on your 5 senses to connect. So as care partners or caregivers, whichever you identify as, you are the one who will have to adjust how you communicate and maintain that connection, because they're not going to be able to. Again, remember that the essence of that person is going to remain, and you want to respect that person for the adult that they are and adjust your communication based on what you're picking up in that moment, in that day, no matter what the stage. Especially in the middle stages, you're going to notice that they're kind of going in and out of it. They have good days and bad days. So if someone's having a good day, there's no reason to employ these strategies for communication when they're not as lucid. If they're able to communicate with you in a typical way, you want to be very, very responsive and perceptive and communicate with them accordingly. So our focus on the early stage, again, this is sometimes referred to as the mild stage. You might not notice these changes yet. There might not be any communication changes in the beginning stages. Again, every person's progression is going to look different. So some might lose their ability to communicate from day one, and some it might not be until way, way, way later. It just depends. But if you are noticing changes, here are some of the most common ones. You might notice that they're having a difficulty finding the right words, or they're taking a little bit longer to speak and respond. They might be withdrawing from conversation, and they might be struggling with some decision making or problem solving. And you might notice too that they're reacting a little more emotionally than they did in the past, or they're just avoiding discussion altogether. Whether you notice these changes or not, communication in that early stage is crucial. This is where, especially when you just found out about the diagnosis, everyone's adjusting to it. That person's adjusting to it. You as their care partner is adjusting to it. Anybody who's involved in their life is going to have some sort of feeling about it. And if you know about the disease, you know that there are changes that lie ahead, and people are going to be very emotional about that. Denial is part of the disease for some people. It might take them a while to come to terms. You may need to be open about it, but communication is going to help make that transition more just easier on everybody else, and more everyone have more positive feelings about it. Even though it's scary, if we can communicate with each other about it, it goes a lot more smoothly. It's also important that you have discussions, really open and honest discussions about their wishes for care as close to as soon as you find out about the diagnosis as possible. Maybe not the hour after you found out, but the weeks, the months after you found out about your diagnosis, you want to have those conversations, because you want that person to be involved, and you want their wishes, whatever they want for their care, to be honored. So you want to talk about finances, you want to talk about power of attorney, anything that might be crucial to their well-being in the later stages, whether or not they want to receive hospice care, whether or not they want to be in a long-term care facility, whatever they want, you want to have that open and honest conversation about what they want and what's feasible for you guys as a family. And again, make sure they're included in that conversation. In our first video, we're going to listen to Martha Tierney from our association. She is going to tell us a little bit more about how you can be helpful in those early stages.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, you know, if you ever have trouble coming up with the word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
As caregivers, you might struggle to know how to help the person communicate in the early stage, so it's always best to just ask them directly how they would like to be helped, if they want any help at all. Asking them is a way to show that you respect their preferences and their feelings as well. One of the best ways to be sure you're offering help with communication is, again, asking directly. But there are also some other ways that you want to do that. You want to keep your sentences very straightforward. You don't want to use anything but plain language. Just be very direct, very clear. Keep them short. Give them time to process it. Even if you can't see that they are struggling with processing things, they're likely taking a little bit more time to decode what you said and really comprehend it. And then they're going to have to take an additional amount of time for them to come up with a response. So you want to give that wait time to ensure that they aren't feeling rushed, they aren't feeling pressured, they're just having enough time to really process what you're saying, and they can still have a meaningful conversation with you. And then again, include them in those conversations that have to do with planning for their future, just so that you can empower them to make decisions that are best for them, and you can be sure to honor their wishes. Other things to keep in mind: just because they have an Alzheimer's diagnosis does not mean that automatically all of their communication and language abilities are going to diminish. It is progressive, so there's going to be a journey that they go on to do this. So connect with them where they are in that moment. I know we touched on that earlier, but it's so important that you are talking to them however they need to be talked to during that moment that you're speaking with them. Be direct with them. Ask them how they want to be communicated with. Maybe they would prefer to have a phone conversation with you. Maybe they'd rather you just send them a note or a letter, maybe an email. Maybe they do want to be in person because they can still detect your body language and they can pick up on those nonverbal cues. You just want to ask them how they would prefer to be communicated with. Make sure you're laughing with them and you're honest with each other. Don't pull back whatever your relationship is with them, whether you're just their friend or you're their spouse or it's your mother or father or brother or sister. Make sure that you are still engaging with them and trying your best to connect with them on whatever level you can. Moving on to the middle stages, if you did not see some things before when they're in the mild stages, you're going to start to see them now. And if you did see changes in the mild stages, you're probably going to notice that they're more pronounced now. So they're going to have that increased difficulty in finding words. They're going to start with that repetition, kind of a hallmark of the disease. A lot of people repeat themselves. They might start inventing new words to describe familiar things. For example, they might reference a watch as a hand clock. So they're just pulling on whatever they know and calling it that. Even if they did know the word watch, they couldn't come up with it at that time. They might easily lose their train of thought. They might just withdraw from speaking at all because they notice in themselves how difficult it is to have those conversations. And you'll probably start noticing that they're going to be communicating their needs through their behavior rather than their words. You might also notice that they are struggling to organize their words and their thoughts. If they are bilingual or multilingual, you may notice that they revert to their native language or use curse words. They might just use gestures instead of speaking. It's going to be tough for them to follow a conversation or a TV program or really understand what you're saying. And all of that is because of the deterioration that is going on in their brains, what is physically happening to them. If you notice a sudden change or a major change, you want to consult your doctor, because while it could certainly be a function of the disease, it might also be something totally unrelated. It could be a medication change. It could be something, a mental health disorder or some other underlying condition that is causing it. So make sure you consult with your doctor and rule anything out, because if it is something like that, if it's a medication change or side effect or something that you can address right away and resolve, you want to do that. In this next video, we are going to listen to Beverly, and she is going to share some of the advice that she gives to caregivers as a support group facilitator.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them in their process.
To recap what Beverly shared, you want to take your time when you're responding. Don't expect them to behave the same way that they did in the past. And remember that if your communication isn't getting what you desire from them, you're the one who's going to have to change, because the person with the disease isn't going to be able to. To connect with someone in the middle stage, remember that it's more than just their communication skills that are diminishing. It's so much more. All parts of their brain, all parts of their personality are changing. There's so many things that are changing for them, and they're probably going to start no longer recognizing some people. So you want to approach people from the front and just give them a gentle reminder, say who you are, call them by name. You may even want to tell them your relation to them. So if you're speaking with your dad, you can go up to them and say, "Hi Dad, it's your daughter Sally." That way he knows exactly who you are, and you don't have to have that uncomfortable time where he may not remember you. Make sure that you're giving them eye contact and you're at their eye level. Really try to avoid criticizing or correcting them. If you hear them say something that you know is incorrect, or they bring something up from the past and think that it's happening in the present, just go with it. There's no reason to criticize them or correct what they think. Just go with the flow. Be sure to pay attention to your tone of voice, because even if they can't understand exactly what you're saying, they can still pick up on your tone of voice and those nonverbal cues again. So make sure you have a calm and gentle tone and that you take your time to communicate. Can't stress that enough, but like she said, maybe even count to 3 before you say something again or before you respond. Just give them that time, be really patient, and you'll notice a lot more ease when you are communicating with someone. In this next video, Rebecca is going to talk about how she had to make adjustments about her own thoughts and her own responses when her mother repeated herself.
She could sense my frustration because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, you know, she was very old school and she said, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
Repetition can be especially frustrating for people, but that is one behavior associated with the disease that you just cannot fix. You cannot do anything about it. It just happens. And the only way that you can really be okay with it is by changing your own attitude about it and how you respond. So it's important to remind yourself that it's not that person, it's not like they are asking you a ton of times just to get a rise out of you. They're not trying to make you upset. It truly is just a function of the disease, and they really cannot remember that they asked you that or that they said that however many minutes or seconds ago. So we really have to work ourselves as people without that disease to adjust how we feel and how we're approaching it. Ooh. Whoops. All right. When you are in those middle stages, it's really important to join the person's reality. So that means that, like I said, they may be thinking something that is not true. They may have different delusions, or they may be living in 50 years ago. Whatever the case is, if they are not living in the reality that you and I are living in, we need to join them where they're at. And they are not going to be able to do that for us. We have to do it for them. So it's important that we are trying to assess their needs. We're figuring out, is this person hungry, or is this person tired or anxious? We are reading their behaviors and figuring out what exactly it is that they need. We're letting them know that we are concerned about their concerns. We want to help them. We're trying to help them as much as we can. Be clear and concise. You don't need to give a long-winded explanation for anything that you do, but do give some sort of an answer and try to respond to the emotions behind the statement. So if you hear that they're saying, you know, I can drive just fine, you want to think about what the emotions are behind that statement. They're probably really saying, I don't want to give up my independence. Or if they're saying, you know, stop making all my decisions for me, they're really saying, I am upset with this disease and that I can't do things the way I did before. So try and understand the person's emotions behind whatever it is that they are saying and address it from a really an empathetic place rather than maybe a logical place. Again, make sure you're keeping things slow and basic. You're using plain language. You're not giving long-winded explanations. You're slow and you're clear and you're concise. You're only answering one thing at a time. If they need help doing something, you're only giving one direction at a time. And if they need help brushing their teeth, rather than saying, well, turn on the water, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, and then you want to give them one step at a time, show them what to do. You don't want to overwhelm them with things. And make sure that you are very patient. And if you've had that conversation with them where they're all right with you giving a little bit more, you can fill in the words for them. But if they don't like that, then just be really patient. If they are having a hard time answering things, don't give them a ton of open-ended questions. Just be very direct. For example, if you're asking them if they're hungry or if it's lunchtime, instead of saying, hey, do you want lunch? say, I'm going to make some lunch. Would you like a turkey sandwich or a ham sandwich? Just give them those two options. You don't need to give them an open-ended question about what they want. That just makes it more difficult for them to have to come up with an answer. Just give them that answer already, and then that's a sure way for them to still be able to communicate with you. And it gives them that sense of self still and that autonomy that you want to continue giving them throughout the disease, and gives them some confidence that they can still communicate with you in a regular way. It's also helpful to give people multiple cues during this middle stage when you notice that they're having good days and bad days, and you want to help them as much as possible while still giving them their autonomy. So you can provide them visual cues. Like I said, with brushing your teeth, instead of giving them every single step, you could show them. That's a visual cue. Write things down for people, especially with photographs. You can label who that picture is of and what their relationship is. Put your answers into your questions like we talked about with the meal times. Repeat as you need to. Instead of doing something or saying something, presenting it negatively, try to present it positively. If you know that they are not going to be able to drive, instead of saying, well, you can't get there on your own, just say, I'll be sure we get you there no matter what. Give every negative situation a positive spin, and avoid quizzing them. Instead of asking them for whatever the information is that you need, just let it go. You don't need to frustrate them anymore. They're probably already very frustrated that they can't think of it, and trying to pressure them is just going to create more frustration and more tension. Again, join the reality. Let them know that you are there and you're listening. The facts are far less important than how the person feels. So you want to be sure that you are asking them how they feel. You're responding to the emotion behind whatever it is they're saying. Reassure them constantly that you're there for them and that you understand what they want. Agree with them, just go with the flow. That's part of joining their reality. You don't need to correct them. And make sure that you are making the adjustments and you're not trying to force them to, because they're not going to be able to. You're going to need to do that. In the late stages, you are going to notice that communication is virtually non-existent. They lose their ability to communicate with words, and they probably don't understand much of what you're saying. We don't know that for sure, but it is likely. So to connect with them, you want to make sure that you are using your 5 senses to communicate. And we'll go through what each of those looks like, but still talk to them, still use their history to communicate with them, talk about things that they used to like to do or memories that you have. Just work to make them feel safe and happy, and make sure that you are as respectful as possible, because even though what's happening to their brain, they're still an adult and a human being, and you want to give them that respect while they are communicating with you, while you're communicating with them. And make sure that you are listening and working to see if there are any expressions of pain or agitation or anxiety or whatever it is, and you are responding accordingly. Sandra is going to talk to us about how she connected with her mother in the late stages of the disease.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the 5 senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. My husband noted to me recently, he said, you know, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
Like she said, it's important to use the 5 senses to connect. So we're going to go through each of those and give some examples of how you can do that with your loved one. You may want to communicate through touch, giving them different fabrics or shapes. Maybe they really like lotions. Identify some of those items with touch. If they like animals or different things that you could sculpt with, like dough or Play-Doh or whatever it is, some clay. Even just holding the person's hand can sometimes be a really powerful way to connect. You may have even seen those lap blankets, and on them they have different little trinkets and different things that are kind of a sensory for people to have on their lap and play with. Those are a good way to connect with people. We can also connect through sight, whether it's pictures or watching videos, looking at photo albums. I know my family member had it. She loved photos all her life, and so we would always bring pictures for her to look at. Maybe they like art and maybe they've traveled a lot. You can show pictures of that, or go, like it says here, go bird watching or visit an aquarium. Maybe there's a park nearby where you can go and watch, or maybe you could paint or just go outdoors, but still try to connect with them. And this, with all these 5 senses, this is where you really want to pull on who they were before the disease and that sense of self, because they're still going to like those things. So think about what they liked to do, what made them happy, what senses they really appealed to them, and how you can still connect with them that way. Maybe down, they like to listen to music or different instruments. Maybe they loved to read and they just loved stories, and you can read to them or turn on a TV show or a movie that they loved. Even just talking to them can be really important. If they loved to have conversation, just still talk to them and tell them whatever it is that you would tell them if they could respond to you anyway, even if they can't. With smell, this sense may diminish during the progression of the disease, but if it's still there, you can still connect with them by giving them a little plastic baggie full of some of these different things for them to smell, maybe their favorite smells. Lotions, again, maybe things that they loved. If they were a great cook, or they loved to bake, or they just loved to eat, you can make their favorite meals for them so they can still smell. And this is just another way for you to show that you are trying to connect with them, you care about them. They'll still be able to pick up on that, even if they can't respond about it. And through taste, again, if you are making them some of their favorite things to eat or favorite things to drink, they may not be able to swallow it anymore, but you could maybe still give them a taste. That really depends on where they're at in the progression and their physicality, because that does diminish as well during the progression of the disease. So you really want to make sure that you're tailoring it to each person, again, during that moment and what's going on. In all stages of the disease, there are some principles that we can follow to make sure our communication efforts are maximized and as effective as possible. Understand what is and what isn't possible to change by understanding all that you can about the disease. You want to stay up to date with all of the latest information and all the scientific breakthroughs that are happening. Attend workshops, attend conferences, read about it. Know and accept the cognitive and functional limitations of that person, because that'll help you set realistic expectations. And that again goes back to just reading more about the disease and understanding it. The more you understand, the better you'll be able to respond and communicate with that person. Remember, this is so important, that this person has a disease. It's still a person, still an adult, they still have that sense of self, and you want to respect that. And you want to use your feelings to connect with them. So you want to make sure that your tone of voice conveys whatever you're trying to express. They're going to be able to pick up on that and reflect that as well. And just stay focused in maintaining a positive attitude and rapport with that person. Show them that you care by trying to connect with them. Listen and observe and try to decode what they're communicating. It may not be through words, it might be through behaviors that are new and hard to understand, but you want to try and decode the meaning behind it and the emotion. And again, just join that person's reality so that you can understand what's needed and how best to intervene. Communication evolves throughout all these stages, and adapting to those changes does require some commitment and some learning, but when you adjust your communication, you're able to connect deeply with them and meaningfully and still have that great relationship that you had before the disease. So make sure you're working as best as you can to do that. And in this video, we are going to listen to Dr. Sam Fazio tell a little bit about the multiple effects of not caring for yourself as a caregiver.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with disease and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
Even though we just spent this last 45 minutes, hour talking about communicating with that person and being a good caregiver, we would be remiss not to mention that it is so important to take care of yourself as well. You cannot take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself. So pay attention to your own mental, emotional, and physical health and make sure that you are taking the necessary steps to have a healthy life. Because if you don't have a healthy life, you're not going to be able to care for your loved one either. With the Alzheimer's Association, we are here to help in a variety of ways. We have all of these different ways you can contact us. We are here to not only raise money for research, but we're here to help caregivers and the general population learn more about the disease and have ways that they can take care of themselves and others. We provide support groups, we provide educational programs like I just gave, and these are in communities nationwide. And you all are watching this virtually. All of our programming is virtual right now while we can't be in person yet. And our support groups are virtual as well. So if you want to know more information about that, I am always here to answer those questions, but you can also go online and find any of these. We also have a really good resource in our 24/7 helpline. And this helpline is available to answer any question that you might have about the disease, about the association, but they're also there for crisis situations. So if you notice that your loved one is being aggressive and you've never seen that before and you don't know how to respond or how to help, you can call this helpline and they are going to walk you through steps of how to de-escalate that situation, any situation that you may encounter. Our website also has dozens and dozens of resources for people who are caregiving, who just want to know more about the disease. We have lots and lots of information on our website. And we also have ways that you can get involved. We are always looking for participants for our Walk to End Alzheimer's, which will start at the end of the summer and go into early fall. We have our longest day event coming up here in this month. We also have ways that you can advocate for us at the federal and state levels. You can volunteer by facilitating a support group. You can give a presentation like I just gave. If you want to be involved, we can find a way. We also have a clinical studies and trials program called Trial Match, and this is a really wonderful way that you can be involved in some of those studies. You don't have to have the disease. It can be anybody who can get involved, but if you do have the disease, a lot of times you have access to new medications that are still in the trial stage but show a lot of promise. Again, if you have any questions, you are always welcome to call our helpline. You are always welcome to contact me, and I'm happy to help you with whatever it is that you need or point you in the right direction. With that, thank you very much. If there are any questions, I see that there are 2 in the chat that I'll look at.
I think the chat ones are more about the technical advance we had today compared to yesterday.
Oh, awesome.
So,
okay.
Yesterday we had a lot of background noise, but I think because we had both speakers in the same room, so we had a lot of feedback. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but if there is a question that somebody may have, it may be easier just to unmute yourself and to ask that. But Acacia, is there, so as providers, I know people like to throw out that, oh, they have dementia, that's why they're acting this way. But does somebody have to have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's to reach out to the association for resources or support?
No, anybody can reach out, and thank you for asking that. That's a good question. So dementia, as you all as providers probably know, it covers a multitude of different diseases like Alzheimer's disease. They could have Lewy body, frontal temporal, and we are here to help with whatever dementia you might be experiencing. But a lot of times people are just calling just to know either more information about the disease just in general, or for maybe a school project I've had people reach out for, or they're kind of noticing some things that they think are off and they think could be a type of dementia, and they call wanting to know more information about the 10 signs. So if anybody calls, we are going to help them with whatever they're asking about. So no, you do not have to have a diagnosis to reach out.
Wonderful. Well, again, I want to appreciate you joining us and be able to offer this. I know, again, it's a very hot topic. A lot of questions come up, and so again, I'm very thankful that you are a great resource in the different office locations, not only in our 20 counties, but throughout the state, as well as in every state, as we have caregivers that are remotely caregiving, that are concerned, just to get more information about an ever-changing disease. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, you guys are a great resource for us too. So thank you very much for putting this on and for having us. And I was happy to come share to all of you today.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to take away your presentation privileges, I guess, for lack of better words.
Go ahead.
So talking a little bit about connections here. For those that have joined us yesterday, we were thankfully able to add another session to our series starting from Monday, talking about the legal side of dementia, what paperwork needs to be done and when to do it and when it's too late to do it, as that's what a few of the calls that we get at Connections is, my family, my aunt has dementia, what do I need to do? Was the power of attorney signed before or after the diagnosis? All those pressing questions. So we will have a Matt with Bowman Attorney speaking about that on Monday. So if you would like to join in that, go ahead and let me know afterwards, and we'll get you added to that. So a little bit about Connection. And again, if you had joined me yesterday, this is a duplication of it. So if you like to log off, that's completely fine. I will not be brokenhearted. But otherwise, so our mission as Connections is to enhance the quality of life for elders in our service area through education, planning, and coordination of services. We do serve the 20 Southwest counties in the state of Iowa. We have office locations in Council Bluffs, Crescent, and Sioux City in order to be able to do that. We have several different services. And if we don't have a service for it now, it's probably in the works. As I like to say that we kind of are the gap fillers, the crack fillers. If there's not an agency doing something, we will probably end up doing something with it. But first we have our Healthy Living program. This is more coined as our home delivered meals, Meals on Wheels program. We also coordinate with the congregate meal sites or senior centers. We will also coordinate the farmers market vouchers for those that are 60 years and older. And then we have different exercise groups that we offer within the senior centers and within the community as well. Matter Balance and Tai Chi, all those great things. We also have our community engagement. This is going to be with our RSVP program, so retired volunteer service program. I'm probably not saying that right, but people that are, when they do retire, they still have a lot of talent, a lot of skills they like to share. And so we do have a coordinator who's able to connect them with different agencies and different programs to be able to still share their talents and help out in our agency and our community. We also partner with Iowa Vocational Rehab to offer an older American employment program to be able to assist individuals that may have been out of the work field for a moment, maybe to help them with how to apply for a job, what is a resume, how to do things online, and any other challenge that they may have. Oftentimes we see that when people are filling applications and they write that they're 55 or 62, they are discriminated against, for that, thinking that they're not able to fulfill the job to its full capacity, but oftentimes they can do it a lot better than, somebody who is much younger than them. We also offer our SHIP program. So if you have anybody or know anybody who is new to Medicare, on Medicare, it is a free service to anybody within, our area to better understand what is Medicare, the different programs are available, to make sure that they are in the right program and it's the most cost effective for them. Then we also have our consumer services program. This is kind of our lump sum. This is where most people are going to have connections with our agency. If you call our 800 number, this is going to be the people you're going to speak with to get those resources, to get that information. And then if people are needing more one-on-one assistance, we do have our options counseling program. This will be able to, apply for Medicaid, apply for some, housing, different things like that. We also offer our case management program. If you are familiar with the Medicaid waiver program, it's very similar. I'm a little biased and think we're way better, but we will be able to offer longer term services to make sure people can remain independent as long as possible and ensure their caregivers are supported in that unique role that they have. So I oversee our elder abuse prevention awareness program. So if anybody is at risk for elder abuse, that's going to be kind of the person you speak with me. So elder abuse can be physical, emotional, sexual, financial, neglect, which could be confinement or abandonment, or even self-neglect. Elder abuse in the state of Iowa, it's if somebody is 60 years or older and they have a caregiver or they are neglecting themselves. This can happen at home. This can happen at somebody else's home, in assisted living or in a nursing facility. So nobody is immune to elder abuse. It can happen to anybody, from anybody, anywhere. Our elder abuse prevention program itself is individuals, they receive a confidential intake, in-depth assessment to fully assess what is the need, and then connect them with resources to prevent any future problems and to alleviate the risk that is currently happening. Oftentimes it is going to be self-neglect, so we've assisted with, getting dumpsters for those that may be hoarding, getting some appliances. We've done, for transportation, medication. We can do a little bit of very flexible, I guess, as with elder abuse, anything can really happen and change the situation. We also will be able to assist our caregivers. Oftentimes we do, have caregivers that they're just stressed and they didn't realize that they're neglecting their loved one. Because at any age, we have the right to make our own decisions unless that is taken away by the courts or by a physician. So we have the right to make poor decisions. We have the right to, not bathe for a week. We have the right not to take our medications. But with, persons with dementia, it adds another level of challenge to that. So with our Caregiver Program, which is another program that we refer to often through our elder abuse program, is providing that respite service, providing that support, education, and different resources within the community. So they are supported in that role, and that way, again, they're taking care of themselves. So 59% of family caregivers with people with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia have rated their emotional stress of caregiving as very high. And 5 to 10% of caregivers reported that they have physically been abusive towards their care recipient with dementia. Physical abuse is the most common with dementia, just because they get stressed and maybe they didn't count the 1, 2, 3 and they just reacted. Could be, not only are they dealing with an ever-changing person with dementia, but they're also working through their everyday stress. And then we add, COVID on top of it. So, maybe they're stuck at home with their loved one. They're not able to go out. People are limited about coming in, so they lose that sense of support. So we just need to make sure that we are engaging with our caregivers, engaging with those that have dementia or any elder for that fact. Neglect can be active or passive, like we learned yesterday. So active is they willingly did it. They did it on purpose. They knew what they were doing, and yet they still did it. Passive is they didn't realize what was happening. They didn't do it with any negative intent. So, who to call if we do recognize that maybe something is off, maybe there is, something that's not right. It would be, if the person is at home, it's going to be contacting any medical staff, maybe their doctor, the nurse, or home health agency if one is coming in. Friends or family, if there is somebody that comes on a regular basis, maybe just stop them as they're leaving. If their contact information, just giving them a call. Support groups, different supports, different social groups that one may belong to. The Area Agency on Aging here at Connections, we are always a source to call if you have questions. If they are in a senior housing program or any kind of apartment, it could be talking with the housing staff as well, reaching out to them that, I think something's going on here. I'm a little concerned about this person, and they can give us a call. Always call the police too if you think that somebody is in immediate danger. You're not quite sure who to call. They can be a great resource as well. So elder abuse can happen not only in the community, but can also happen in a facility. So if you know of somebody who is, in a skilled facility, in a long-term care facility, there is a licensing board that does oversee them. So calling them or the ombudsman office. And if you're not quite sure who they are, what their number is, go ahead and give us a call at Connections and we can get that for you. So speaking of the specific numbers, Iowa Adult Protective Services in Iowa, the number is there. We always recommend people to start with them to at least get the report started. You don't have to know all the information. You don't even have to know that abuse or neglect is happening. You're just concerned about it. It's always good to get a report started, even if it's not accepted. At least they have a record of it. We have worked with them to establish a great partnership that if the report is not accepted, they have started referring people to the local area agencies on aging, so they at least have a resource to follow up with. And if somebody is involved with APS, that we have worked with a lot of the workers as well to provide that support and those resources to connect to alleviate that abuse. Connections number there, the 800 number will get you to any of our 3 offices to be able to get you the resources. Not only do we serve the 20 counties in Iowa, we are also part of Lifelong Links. We can get resources throughout the whole state of Iowa. So if somebody is moving, relocating, we can get information there as well. Local police, but if you feel like somebody is in immediate danger, call 911, it's a universal number. Iowa Legal Aid, if you have any questions regarding legal rights, is this okay? What paperwork needs to be signed? Maybe they're being evicted from housing. Can I evict my child from my home? That would be calling Iowa Legal Aid. It's a income-based resource for individuals. Sometimes their services are free. Their information is free specifically. And then financial exploitation reports. If you feel like somebody has been exploited, the Iowa Attorney General's office will be the one that would take the report, and they can work through filing any reports from there, getting the police involved, helping stop payments, things like that as well. Through conversations within our community, different providers, we have worked and came up that we need more information on what is elder abuse, what resources are within our community, as every case is different, since we are working with individuals. And we have a lot of resources, a lot of talent, a lot of experts within our communities, but we just don't know about them. Or even, where to go if we have questions, is this elder abuse? I don't know. So we decided that we were going to start the WRAP Coalition, which is Western Iowa Region Adult Abuse Prevention. And so it's not focusing specifically on elder abuse. It's going to be more of adults, so 18 and older, that may be a victim of abuse or neglect. It provides an opportunity for individuals, community members, service providers to be able to come together, ask questions maybe on specific cases, and look at different resources that are available, highlight different agencies within our community to be able to assist. So right now we do a listserv. We started this and then COVID happened, so it kind of fell back a little bit. But we do have a listserv through Google Groups that allows different providers to pose questions, to share trainings, just to be able to connect with each other on what is out there and what is needed. And then looking at having quarterly meetings throughout the different regions. So we're looking at maybe doing some virtual ones, maybe, July, August, to kind of kick it back off a little bit when things start to become a little normal, I guess. I don't really like that word, but. So what can you do to combat elder abuse? Being aware if there's something is off, something that just doesn't feel right, something that may be different that is concerning, speak up about it, and to call for help. So if you do see any signs, from a loved one that abuse or neglect may be happening, calling somebody, calling the police, calling connections, calling APS, calling a trusted friend who may know who to connect with, and then working together as a community. Oftentimes that we get very siloed for many different reasons, but it does take a community. It takes a team to to stimulate change, be able to protect elders, and moving forward. So again, I always encourage people to join our coalition. And then again, on Monday, we have our last session with our World Elder Abuse Awareness Series. So I do hope you can join us then. And again, I thank you for joining today, and enjoy the rest of your week.